It's Joe, your faithful host and co-founder of Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. In case you missed our birthday, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary this summer. For 10 years, we've been getting together each and every week to bring you epic tales of tech support and business management, and I'm pretty sure we've saved a lot of people a ton of time by sharing our struggles and solutions. Starting now, we're shifting our focus to the Patreon community. That means the newest shows will be posted primarily on Patreon. How do you get the latest episodes? Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click on support. Pledge monthly, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only episodes right in your favorite podcast app. If you already support us on Patreon, log in there to get your special link and subscribe to the patron-only show so you don't miss anything. Here on the public show, we'll be featuring classic episodes hand-selected for you from our catalog of over 500 episodes, along with occasional new episodes too. And remember, we're regularly releasing new content on Patreon, where you can join our community of supporters starting at just $15 per month, giving you access to the freshest content. We feature dozens of exclusive shows on Patreon where we speak a little more freely about how we make business decisions, navigate client relationships, manage our employees, and sometimes deal with mistakes and difficulties too. Plus, as a patron, you receive access to our entire back catalog where you can revisit classic episodes and learn from colleagues we've interviewed who've shared their own best practices. Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support to pledge monthly on Patreon. We'd really appreciate your support, and we're confident your business will benefit from the wisdom of the community we've gathered there. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Command Control Power.
We have something to celebrate. Jerry's back in town. Jerry, I want to hear all about your trip and what you were doing out there in Europe.
Yeah, I was out of town for almost 3 weeks, which was pretty remarkable, but it went by very quickly. And I just have a couple of tech observations. The cross-Atlantic trip going out and coming back, I experienced the same thing that you experienced, Sam, about the Wi-Fi go and you couldn't get the, what do we call it, the splash sheet to load in Safari or Chrome. Wasn't that what you were experiencing?
Yeah, the captive portal wasn't working. Did you listen to our show and get some tips?
I didn't. I tried some of the tips about turning on and off private browsing and this, that, and the other thing. But I think I found what was causing my particular issue, and this may be the solution or may help other people. I have some pre-configured DNS numbers in my Wi-Fi, like either straight ones or straight eights. Soon as I removed my manual DNS configurations and it just picked up the DNS from the plane, immediately it opened up the captive portal.
Oh, that'll do it, huh?
Yeah. And I tried everything. I was getting an IP address. I got the IP address of the router, thinking that would bring me to the home page. And so I put in the unique IP address. Nothing. I couldn't get anything to load in any browser, no matter which way, sideways, backwards, and forwards. And I messed around with this for a while. And then I'm like, let me try this. And immediately that solved it.
It's always DNS, man.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Pam's right.
Pam's right. Yeah. You know, it's interesting, actually, this didn't turn out to be your issue, but if you have issues with a captive portal network, like it won't load the captive page or something like that, you can actually go to captive.apple.com and that will load that captive portal page. So just a little thing for our listeners, if they don't know about that one. If you're
but that didn't work for you on the plane though, right?
No, so yeah, see, in my situation, it was those configurations with iCloud Private Relay and stuff. And then with yours, it was specific to DNS. So I think in our cases, it wouldn't have helped. But in certain situations, if you're just trying to connect to a public network that has a captive portal and it won't load for you, that's one way that you can try and force the loading of the captive portal site.
Yeah. Interesting. And from the flight attendant, I also got the URL, which was something like wireless.delta.com. And that didn't even help. Not until I stripped out all the DNS and it was immediate. Yeah.
Do you use like a free DNS service or something like that?
No, I just put in Google and
straight eights and straight ones. Yeah. Like you said.
Cloudflare.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that should work. I mean, it should be able to. But I guess that's a good tip. I find this stuff so frustrating because every time they add a feature like private relay or whatever, there's always edge cases, and this stuff you just have to encounter it and then troubleshoot it, or hopefully the vendors figure out a workaround. Maybe Apple will figure out that has a problem in the air for in-flight stuff, or maybe Google can update their DNS to support it as well. I don't know, but yeah, it's just, I find it frustrating that there's always so many edge cases. I guess I should appreciate that it keeps me in business, though.
Yeah. But like my dad says, what do normal people do? So you're the average Joe on the street, and you're on the plane, and maybe one of us has gone in and manually or added those DNS numbers for you to make your life better somehow. And now we've screwed you up without even knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like it could be one of us, could be something they do, or some cousin who knows IT or whatever in the home where they have the laptop there. For some reason, it's not getting an IP address from the router. Rather than investigating the deeper issue of like, why is DHCP not working or whatever, the router probably needs to be rebooted. Instead, they just put in an IP address manually. And then that person then goes to a different network and it doesn't work. And they don't know why. So there's a lot of examples of this where this might work in a certain case and might be a good like workaround, but you want to avoid a workaround that somebody has to remember something about. If that wasn't you, Jerry, on the plane, the client would have been suffering. I don't think they would have figured it out.
Sure. Yeah. They would have never gotten it to work. But the good side would be that they didn't have to pay for it because they never got to the page to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. Or the good news for you is they could fly you next time in a first class seat just in case it doesn't work again.
Yeah. They should the seats in first class should all have Ethernet. That's the way it should.
There you go. Yeah.
One of the other takeaways was I had to charge my iPhone, obviously, and my AirPods and my Apple Watch. So I got this, and I don't want to say janky because it wasn't, because it worked. It was a 3-in-1 cable that I plugged into my laptop through USB-C, and then it had 3 different ends on it, one being a charge for the watch, one being a lightning for the AirPods, because I don't have the new AirPods, and the other being, I think, a lightning for the iPhone. That worked out well, one cable to rule them all, but it's long and it's like a Cyclops kind of thing that you roll up and put in your pocket. The other thing that was slightly annoying for me is if I was walking around all day, and I was heavily using Instagram because there was this account that I was managing. And so if I had Instagram doing cellular in the background and taking pictures and doing directions, which I'll talk about in a moment, I couldn't eke out 8 hours on my iPhone. And this is a 13 Pro, not a 13 Pro Max, but I don't think that would have mattered too much. I was slightly annoyed by that. So I had to pocket the smallest Anker little charger on the fly, and I'd have to jack in my phone just to give it juice. Now, it never depleted completely, but I'm one of those people that, like, if I see my battery level drop below 50%, I start getting really nervous.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me about you, Jerry, for some reason.
And what was interesting was with this most recent Apple event, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, they've done away with a little slap-on charger that magnetically sticks to the back of the iPhone. But that would have been beautiful. Had I ponied up and paid the $100 to Apple to use that, I could have gotten my little boost. But I guess because that's a Lightning connector, Apple's phased those out.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was going to bring that up too, because I looked into these also for my for my summer vacation, which I'll talk more about, I think, on the Patreon show where I went and maybe a little bit about the experience. But I was also away for a few weeks, and I was thinking I'll need to just have some way to charge my phone. And I was looking into Belkin and Anker. I was like at Staples or some office supply place and looking at what they had there and just thinking these are the consumer editions that are just very common because they're in a retail store. They're probably pretty decent, but I also typically like to research the stuff online. And I wasn't ready to drop close to $100 on any generic one until I knew, okay, how does this one compare with weight and the amount of power and ease of use and whatever else. So I didn't end up getting anything. And then after, like you said, the recent announcements from Apple, the press talked about how this Apple MagSafe battery pack was basically quietly discontinued or maybe just postponed until they're ready to release it. And I think John Gruber's take might be valid, where he says they don't announce this at the time that they're releasing new phones because they don't want the story in the press to be they had to make a battery pack because the battery life's not good enough or something like that. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a little delay. And his other point was that this is actually a really useful product still because it has a Lightning port. So if you still have Lightning cables everywhere, and you also now have, let's say, a new USB-C iPhone, you could put this battery pack on the iPhone and you can then charge this battery pack, the MagSafe battery pack from Apple, with Lightning, and it would then pass through the charging through MagSafe to your iPhone. Even more interesting is the iPhone can charge the battery pack. So the inverse of that works too. So if you plug in your brand new USB-C iPhone using USB-C to charge it directly, and you have this little backpack on the iPhone, it'll charge this little MagSafe battery pack. So you can, the end result is you can charge both things with either cable.
It's very convenient to have. So if they do indeed roll out a USB-C one, I won't run to the store to get it the day of release, but it's just the way to go, even though you're paying up because it's Apple, but you get the display that shows up as soon as the battery pack is connected, and you don't get that on any other third-party device. So that's nice and slick. I don't know. I wasn't annoyed at Apple and I wasn't annoyed at my phone, but it's just bothersome. You're walking around some famous city and you want to take pictures and go out and enjoy yourself and have lunch and maybe continue on to dinner. You don't have to worry about your phone running out of juice, maybe to not get you back to the hotel because you can't get the map up anymore because it's down to 6%. So it's ridiculous. But speaking of maps, the one thing that I had never used, because my lifestyle is I get in the car, I use Waze. Waze gets me from point A to point B. And if I'm trying to figure out directions online, I open up my computer, I go to Google Maps, and it gives me directions. So I've never used, to any great extent or any, day-to-day use, Apple Maps walking. I was blown away at how fantastic Apple Maps was with walking directions using my Apple Watch in conjunction with it. Now, I have a real hobo. Up until just a day ago, I had a real hobo Apple Watch. I had an Apple Watch 4. Sam, I know you have an Apple Watch 3. I will send you my 4 free if you want it. But it was fantastic. Joe, you must use this more commonly than I do.
Yeah, I live in a medium-sized city. One of the major advantages of city life is being able to do errands on foot. I have a story about my own new iPhone, which I picked up on foot, and it's great. I totally agree. Like, the walking directions are great. They'll take you through the most direct walking path, not just necessarily following streets. It knows to take you through like a walking path or a bike path or things like that. It's awesome. Yeah.
It tells you when you're coming up on stairs. And of course, the gentle taps that you get on your wrist from your Apple Watch. It's just, Joe, you're the way of the wanderer. So that's why I knew you would be familiar with this.
Gary, which watch did you get?
We're not in that segment of the show yet, Sam. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, because I got to watch too, so I want to know. All right, we'll get to it.
All right, we'll get to it. You probably got the big Jumbotron watch from Apple.
The grandfather clock on a wrist.
No, the one like, who's the rapper who would wear the big clock around?
Flavor Flav, man.
Yeah,
Flavor Flav. That's the one you have. But it was fabulous. And I was telling everybody on my trip, and they're all Luddites, most of them. Some of them use the phone, but that's all new to them. But the watch is mysterious and something like, oh, I don't need a watch. And I'm like, yes, you do. You don't really realize you need an Apple Watch until you have an Apple Watch.
It's so funny. I've been having the same exact conversation with my wife, who's not a Luddite, but she's not the most technically inclined person. She uses a Mac, which is my hand-me-down, which I mentioned recently. It's been awesome for her. And she uses an iPhone, of course, but she's also a yoga teacher. And so when she's teaching yoga and dealing with timers on her iPhone, I recently gave her the example, if you had an Apple Watch, it would just tap you on your wrist. You wouldn't have to look at the phone and look at the amount of time remaining, or even worse, have an out loud timer go off or something on your actual phone. The watch can just keep your phone on silent like I do typically almost all the time. And I just use those taps on my wrist to be my only kind of alert system or notification. They tap you in different type of, do they still call it taptic or haptic feedback? So you can get a sense for, oh yeah, that's going to be my calendar alert. That's going to be whatever, a phone call, things like that, or a timer. So it's fantastic. And yeah, it's like until you, I think, wear the watch for a few days and you do start to use some of these features, it's hard to understand why you might want it. Like it's just one more piece of technology. But yeah, that's another great example. You don't have to take your phone out and you're just walking around town and it's telling you which direction to turn. And yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really terrific. One final thought on my travels was the group that I was communicating with all used WhatsApp. And of course, that's the common thing to use in Europe. And that it was impressive in terms of the communication, and it's all encrypted. And I had no beef with WhatsApp at all.
Nice. I use it too for some of the groups that I'm in. It's always the lowest common denominator thing. It's if most of the people don't use, or if a few people don't use iMessage, then you're looking for alternatives. And in my experience, those are either WhatsApp or Telegram. And I prefer Telegram. I think they're independent. I forget if they're part of another organization, but I know WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook, or now Meta, a number of years ago. And that has always given me some pause with whether I want to use it. And I know they're doing some amount of tracking and probably correlating my use there with whatever ads they're trying to show me on various websites and whatever, and maybe reading text. But I think it also does support end-to-end encryption. So that gave me a little bit of...
It does indeed. Sam, now you went to Portugal not that long ago. What was your experience just traveling with your Apple devices in general?
I have one new device since then, which we shall not talk about just yet.
Don't jump ahead. Don't jump ahead. I'm warning you.
No, I got you. I'm sticking with the program. Yep. So yeah, it went relatively well. I think I do stick to Waze as well. I did explore Apple Maps a bit while I was out there to get around. I'm trying to think of when I went for a run, which tool I used. It was probably had to be Apple Maps, I would think. But the differences there are, I think I still stay in my comfort zone with the apps that I use. But I'm curious about your feedback on Apple Maps with walking directions and feedback on the watch, because I don't typically do that. But and I don't know if it's just me, I think it is, but the haptic notifications on the watch, my brain can't figure out that's not a text message coming in. Yeah, I know it's a different tap, but I always think I have a message and I'm always looking, who just texted me? But it's some other notification. If you use Apple Maps telling you to turn left, I can literally be using Apple Maps and it tells me to turn left in the car, and I still feel the haptic touch and I still look at my watch like I have a message coming in. I don't know why my brain can't decipher the differences. Maybe I need to adjust the type of tap it is or something, or I'm just not smart enough to figure it out.
Now, it is tricky, even just when you know it's a direction, which way it's telling you. One of them means turn right. I'm like trying to remember what's the mnemonic here. Like, why is it tap pause versus whatever? Is it like the number of syllables? Like what? My brain doesn't correlate those either yet.
I'm not alone.
One final thing about the Apple Maps, because I'm singing its praises, is one of the cities I visited was Paris. The metro directions with Apple Maps was fabulous. Walking and combined with Metro, you'd want to go to this particular area. I can't say enough good things about it. And I did not download these maps locally because that's one of the new features that you can do. So it wasn't like I was using iOS 17 and I had downloaded local maps. It was just stuff that was just streaming to the phone, and it was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed that too around town when we've had our van in the shop and we're trying to save money on Uber or something like that and just jumping on a bus. It works with that too. Walk 3 blocks to the bus stop, look for this bus, that kind of thing. Here's the next few times it's going to be there. It knows how long it'll take and where to get off, which stop, and then which way to walk. It's great. I don't know what people did before this, like figuring that out manually. That's why I wouldn't have taken the bus before, because it was too complicated to go to some website or whatever and figure it out. Yeah. So can we talk about new technology now, Jerry, or no?
I don't know. I'm waiting for this, Jerry. What do you say?
All right. Well, Sam seems all excited, so maybe he should go first.
Yeah, Sam, you go first. Let's hear about your new stuff.
Okay, fine. So I did get the grandfather clock on a wrist.
Nice.
I've never had the large screen, nor did I think I wanted one. But for some reason, this new Ultra, and Jerry, you already mentioned that I had the Series 3, this Ultra 2 watch just was calling my name. I think when I was traveling, and as you were, Jerry, I would go to Apple stores in different countries, and I was like, oh, let me go check out the watch. And I became fascinated by it. I really wanted one. And of course, I couldn't buy it there because the cellular plan wouldn't work in the US. So when I got back, I realizing I should wait for the Ultra 2. I decided to wait. I did. And I spent the money, which I didn't think I would. And I wasn't sure how I would feel about the large face and the heavy weight. and everything like that. Now, I don't have Swedish boy wrists like you guys, but I still don't have the biggest wrists. And it's really great. I think the biggest part of it for me is, unfortunately, my eyes are deteriorating at a faster rate than I'd like. And I couldn't see stuff as well on my old watch anymore. I was blowing it up big, and it was embarrassingly big, the text on there. And it was like covering up my wrist every time I would look at it so no one would make fun of me. And then I got this watch, and it's crystal clear. I can see all the messages. I did bump it a little bit, just the text size, but I can see all the messages clearly. I have my rotating photos that show me like my favorite pictures on the watch. And I have yet to configure all of the features, like the side button. You can configure it to do like a workout or a timer or things like that. I haven't dove too deep into it, only because I've been in class this week, but I'm really digging it. And I got a bright orange band too, to really call out the watch. It really stands out. My son was like, "Oh, that's an interesting band." When he says that sucks. I don't like that. But he did get my Series 3.
All 3,000 nits.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But I like it. I'm guessing you did not get the Ultra 2 is the gist I'm getting.
Yeah, with the Ultra, are you throwing out your back on whatever side that you're wearing the watch?
I lean to the left a little bit. I was actually making fun of my son this morning because he's got long hair, and his head just tilts to the right and his hair hangs off his head. What are you doing? Why are you standing like that? He's like, "What?" You know what I'm talking about.
Good news, Sam. The health app can also tell you if your walking gait is tilted or whatever, right? It has that feature.
Oh, it does. It doesn't it? Yeah, it has a lot of cool features, like the detection of an irregular heartbeat and things like that. I'm getting older, so I'm thinking about these things. Yeah,
so the Apple Watch Ultra is the cause of and solution to all of your walking problems.
Yeah. Sam's walking down the sidewalk in New York City, and he keeps on listing to the left.
Right.
I end up in a circle.
So I wasn't jaywalking, officer. And then he like looks down and sees your Apple Watch, and he says, "Okay, no problem. Keep moving."
Keep moving.
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying is I have to get one for my right wrist now so I can stay even.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Balance itself out. Before we get to me, I think we need to get to Joe, because Joe is responsible for me making any kind of move at all. And he embarrassed me into it because you and I, the three of us, we had a short text going back and forth. And this was last week. And every time they come out with a new Apple device, Joe comes up with all these reasons why he needs to upgrade.
Yeah. If you want a new Apple thing, call me for justification. It's a free service I offer. Yeah.
So Joe came up with a laundry list of why he needed to get this new device. And after a couple days, that sort of settled in with me. And I thought to myself, what about me? Where's my new Apple device? Why
can't it's good for Joe. Yeah.
Why can't I have a piece of the pie anytime soon? Because I had all these old devices. I had a Apple Watch 4 Hobo Watch model. And then, according to Joe, I'm way in the dark ages because I have it at a 13 Pro.
Oh. I was right there with you with the 13 Pro, and that's why that was like probably my number one reason for justifying the new phone, because it's been 2 years. I think every 2 years is a very reasonable amount of time to upgrade your phone when it's like the number one device that you depend on every day. I use it for every phone call with the client. I use it as I'm walking around responding to texts and responding to emails and stuff like that. Obviously, we all know how much we use our phones. I think we're all pretty similar with that. Mm-hmm. Probably the same thing with your primary Mac. I've been discovering this recently. Like I said on the show recently, that I went with the 15-inch MacBook Air, and it had only been whatever it was, like 2.5 years or something since I had gotten the 13-inch MacBook Pro. You guys remember my previous Mac was some 15-inch. Was it even a MacBook or a PowerBook? I don't even remember. You know,
with like, the extra fan hole, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, it had like extra gills and for air intake and stuff. It was a beat up old machine, hand me down kind of thing. And I hung on to that for a while, and I'm realizing the benefit of just staying current. It doesn't mean every year, it doesn't mean every 2 years, but like every 2 to 3 years with the Mac. And certainly for me, I think I'd even say every 1 to 2 years for the phone. After a year, you can still sell it if it's in good condition and recoup a decent amount of the cost. Or maybe you prefer just having that whole thing be automated and use the iPhone upgrade program. Then it's like you're leasing the phone from Apple and you get a new one every year. That's the way to think about it. In my case, I buy them outright and I try to resell them later, or usually hand them down to my wife when I'm finished with them. So again, that's been 2 years now. I had the 13 Pro, regular size. I watched the announcement, or at least the highlights, and I was tempted again for the Max because I like the idea of the better camera, at least I don't know if it's better, but the 5X optical zoom. It's very appealing. 10X, you get a very good 10X digital zoom or more. Because of the 5X optical, I think you get also better digital zooms. And also figuring that battery life is probably better, although I have to be honest, I didn't compare that, but I remember in the past, the Max had better battery life. And then the screen, obviously, just a bigger screen. I wanted a bigger screen for the kinds of things that I do on my phone. Sometimes I've even done support on my phone. If I'm not in front of my computer and I just have to do something on like a client Mac, I've used Adigy Live Desktop a few times from my phone using VNC apps, and it works. Having a slightly bigger screen is nice for something like that. So there's a few reasons why I thought having the bigger screen would be useful, but also mainly I think I wanted to try it for that reason and the 5X optical camera, of course. So I took the plunge. The way I roll is I don't get up at, for me, it would be 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something like that. But I don't want to get up early just to place an order and try to figure out how to navigate Apple's 20 questions about which model and all that stuff. I want to ease into it a little bit more. So I wait until the day that they're in the stores. And then I use the Apple Store app on the iPhone to go through the initial steps of configuring the one I want. So I went with the 15 Pro Max in whatever blue, midnight blue or whatever it is. And then 512, because that's just how much I tend to need on my phones. And then I just waited until I could find it available at the local store. You can make those choices and then you can tap for availability, like at the top. And then you can see which of the local stores. It's convenient for me, probably for you too, Sam. I don't know about for you, Jerry, if you have more than, one or two that are near enough to you. But here I can literally walk to one store. So it's like a mile away or something. And that's my preferred method. And there's a couple of other stores I can drive to in a relatively short drive. So I was just basically trying different configurations, different colors, different capacities, even comparing the Max to the regular, and just trying it over the course of the day. And Saturday morning, the day after they were available, one of them, the exact one I wanted, the one I just mentioned, came up at the local store. So I just ordered it. You select, because it shows you like availability and it says something like for pickup today or whatever. So once I knew that, or even I was looking on the Friday before and it said for pickup tomorrow. So I knew these were coming and going based on other people's orders or cancellations or Apple's inventory allocation or whatever. So that's why I kept checking. Yeah, so it was available for pickup. I selected a pickup window. I walked over there, picked it up. It was great. So that was easy. So you walk in, you walk out with the phone. You don't have to set it up there. Maybe that's different. I think one of the carriers requires you to set it up in person. It might be AT&T. I'm not sure.
And you mentioned, Joe, that you used Apple Maps to get to the store, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's Apple all the way down. I was able just to get the phone. They just hand it to you. They let you walk out with it. I remember in certain cases you had to set it up, and that was annoying to have to go through that process in the store. But I did the direct phone to phone transfer back at home. It took hours. It took a really long time because of how much data there was, but it was really smooth. I had to log into only a few accounts, like I think my 2 iCloud accounts, and I forget. That was like, even a lot of my email accounts just worked. I was really impressed that I didn't have to actually log into all of my accounts again. So that's the benefit of direct phone to phone transfer. So thoughts on the Max. Battery life, I haven't really tested it, but seems great. That was one of the, going back to my justification, I noticed my 13 Pro battery life was definitely waning a little bit. So it wasn't getting me through a full day of like heavy use unless I charged it here and there throughout the day. That's not ideal. So that was one of the main reasons. And obviously this brand new phone fixes that. The camera is great, having that 5X optical. I haven't really used it a ton, but I've tested it and you can tell it's better, certainly a lot better for like far away zoom than the standard phone. Haven't compared it to the regular non-Max iPhone 15 Pro, which I assume does make some improvements to the camera versus my 13 Pro. 5X is definitely a step beyond. But here's the thing. The Max is inherently a two-handed device. It's not easy to reach the other side of the phone with one hand. If you're trying to tap the bottom left corner with your right hand or vice versa, or reach the top of the phone when you're holding it one-handed, it's not ideal. It's really more for people who use their phone as I'm going to sit down at my kitchen table or I'm going to sit down at my desk and I'm going to have a little bit of phone time. I'm going to get back to these people who texted me. I'm going to answer a few emails on my phone. I have a client who tells me a lot. Her phone is her main way of reading the news. She barely uses her Mac anymore. She just does everything on the phone. And we can all relate to that. I go days without looking at my Mac if it's the weekend or whatever. The phone is awesome. And having a big phone is great if you're able to sit down and just focus on using the phone. But it's not as great for someone like me who uses it intermittently throughout the day, multitasking. Again, I'll be out for a walk. I'll be following the directions. My watch is tapping me and I want to respond to a quick text. Maybe I'm holding a coffee in one hand, that kind of thing. I'm worried I'm going to drop my phone because it's just unwieldy enough to not be able to reach the whole interface with one hand. So
and you
that
can
to me
commando with
is
your
limiting.
phone, right?
I didn't for my 13 Pro. I've had it with a case for a while because it was just too slippery. I'd put it down on the corner of a sink or something, and it's too. I don't know. That one was too slippery for me. I thought I needed a case. This one so far, I've been using caseless, but I'm glad I tried it. But I think I'm going to resell it and go with the regular 15 Pro because it's enough of a limitation for me that it makes it less useful if I have to stop what I'm doing and then take out my phone and use it two-handed to use it effectively. I think I would need a case for I know I would need a case for this because it's just I feel like if I drop it, it probably would break the front or the back. And so I think I would probably want a case for this one. It's great without a case. Like I have to say, I don't notice the difference in my pocket between the 13 Pro with the case and my 15 Pro Max with no case. Doesn't feel heavier in my pocket. It doesn't feel like it takes up more space. They're about the same weight. If I hold them both in my hand side by side, it doesn't seem like this 15 Pro Max is actually heavier than my 13 Pro. Now, it's less of a difference if you're coming from the 14 Pro. That was a little bit lighter, I think, than the 13 Pro. But 13 Pro with a case, with the kind of pretty simple case that I have, weighs about the same as the 15 Pro Max. So the weight, that's one of the reasons I considered it. The weight wasn't an issue for me. And I think I think for me, like it'll be a nice upgrade to go to the 15 Pro regular with a case. It'll still be lighter than the 13 Pro, probably be significantly lighter and certainly big enough as it is. So that's my plan.
So what is the interaction that you're having problems doing? I realize you're saying you're holding it with one hand and you can't reach across the face of the phone. Tell me some actions you'd be doing with the regular 15 that you can't do with this 15 Pro.
It's a good question because I'm not finding that now. Like I'm looking at texting someone. I just know that this came up when I was walking yesterday thinking, that's not going to work. Maybe it was just like the way I was holding it. It was harder to reach across. It's a little hard to reach the leftmost keys on the keyboard, at least in text. Let me see about email. I don't know. Maybe you're right. It's really not terrible. It's borderline for me. It probably depends on the size of your hands and the length of your fingers and how you hold the phone and whatever. You know?
Yeah, because on the trip, I saw a lot of folks with Samsung Galaxies, and I was really envious of the slightly larger screen and just the quality. Their quality of their life was much better than the quality of my life at that moment.
Yeah.
I've ordered the same phone as you, Joe, but it hasn't arrived yet because I was late to the party. So I'm going to be interested to see how I react to it. So you're out of your return window because you're talking about reselling it? Is that what's happening?
One of the reasons I decided to give this a try, because again, I was torn. I knew I wanted the better camera, but I didn't know if I liked the trade-off of the bigger phone. So I did some research first, and looking at eBay, people are selling these for $500 more than the retail price on eBay. Yeah.
Wow.
So my thing and more, this one's an open box. Now, obviously it's been used for just a few days, totally unblemished and all that. Let's hope it stays that way. But I think I could still probably get, even with an open box, like several $100, maybe $500 more than I paid for it. So
well, what's the play there?
The play there is then the new phone cost me half as much, right?
No, I think he's thinking like, why are people paying over asking when they can just order it? Is it
because they have to. Yeah, it is. So when are you getting yours, Jerry? It's like weeks out now, right?
No, a week after next at the latest, maybe.
Yeah, but you ordered it, at least a week ago or a few days ago?
3 or 4 days ago.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just people who have ridiculous amounts of money just want the thing faster or whatever, and they don't want to wait 2 more weeks. Yeah.
They get your phone and then they say, this guy sent me a phone that doesn't work. And then they contest it with PayPal. And then you get your money held in escrow and they scam you.
I guess that's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
Bringing the house
Well,
down, Jerry.
I'll take photos of the phone in the box and every step of the way. I don't know. I'll insure it with the whatever. I've sold enough on eBay where I used to think that was more of a concern. Maybe it's specifically a concern with phones. I don't know. I think it's worth a try as long as it doesn't. I guess it could be out the cost of the phone, but
I think you'll be fine. You've been doing so much on eBay, Joe. It's like a side hustle for you at this point.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thinking. So yeah, and I think again, every 2 years, like the 15 Pro is going to be a great phone. It is better. Titanium case is lighter. The screen goes more to the edge. So Jerry, to your point, like even if you wanted like a little bit bigger screen, I think you get one even with the 15 Pro regular size. That's what I'm looking forward to, comparing that one to my old 13 Pro.
But the camera, of course, is a huge step down
compared to the Max. Exactly. Yeah. No, I think you'll be happy with the Max. Have you ever had a Max? Yeah.
No, never. And I want to talk about the watches, but here's what tipped me over the edge. I'm not a big fan. My carrier is AT&T. I'm not a big fan of buying things through AT&T, but sometimes they offer a deal. So Sam, I know you use AT&T. Here's what sort of sold the deal for me. With my 13 Pro, they're giving me $1,000 in credit towards that. And I basically only have to pay $5 a month for this Pro Max, this 15 Pro Max.
Wow. I guess that doesn't work for me because we always hand down our phones, so I can't do that. But that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So for whatever reason, AT&T has an incentive to move 15 Pro Maxes. I'm not really sure, but that deal's open to anybody. So yeah, I've just said, I'll take the $1,000. You could have my 2-year-old phone. And
yeah, that's a sweet deal for you, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question also, since we're all talking about getting new devices. What was your activation charge on your new device?
Joe?
I don't remember. I think it was maybe like $35 or $40.
I think, $30 with AT&T.
Okay, so I have AT&T as well, and I'll be brief about this, but one of the challenges with my new watch is it was not transferring cellular properly. It was not able to set up cellular. I had all these issues. I was on hold with AT&T, and all told was on the phone with them for over 2 hours. And when we didn't even get it done, but when we finally got to the point where we had given up hope and said, we got to try later, they were willing to activate it so that if the cellular service came online, that it would just be active and I wouldn't have to call them back. Okay, let's do that. And she said, that'll be $55.
Oh, wow.
Hold on a second. I've just been troubleshooting with you and doing most of the work, by the way. And now you have the audacity to say it's $55? No, that's not going to happen. And we can't waive that. Yes, you can. I don't have the ability to. Okay, so you know what's next. Let me talk to the manager or your supervisor. And she's fine, but they're going to say the same thing. I'm like, great, put them on the phone. Let's do it. I was so mad.
Wow.
And obviously I got it taken off once I got that person on the phone, but $55, that's insane. It used to be 30.
Yeah, 55 is significant. That's like a chunk of the overall cost of the watch. If you look at that over the course of whatever number of months, now that's like actually just consider that like more per month and your bill. However you factor it, that's a chunk of change right there. And all they're doing is activating service on a different device than you had before. Don't they want you to keep using them? Like why?
I know.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because you have the Flav watch.
Maybe the heavier the watch, the more the activation.
There you go. That makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
We price it by the pound. That's how we do it.
Right.
You have to move more squirrels from point A to point B to get your watch to work. I had the same deal, Sam, with the watch that I got. I want to talk about the watch. Joe, you got a watch? Yes?
No, I didn't get the watch. I have whatever watch I had a year ago. I should look it up and tell you what watch I have, but I'm fine with it. I don't have the Ultra. I have the series that came out, I think, like right before the Ultra came out.
Interesting. Yeah. I got a watch because I figured I don't know how many years it was between the 4 and the 9, not 5 years, because it doesn't correlate. But anyway, so the Apple Watch 4 was the first one that did the EKG. And on the trip, I used it all through the trip. It was great. So I got the 9, the straight 9. I didn't get the Ultra. And I had the same deal that you had, Sam, where it didn't activate the cellular, because I think that's like, I wouldn't buy a watch without cellular connectivity after having it on the 4 and not having it on a previous version. It's like a game changer for me. And I had to spend a little bit of time on the phone with a guy, but it was probably like 15 minutes tops. And I had to give him the IMEI number, and it didn't take much to activate it.
Oh, good for you.
It wasn't a real pain point. It did transfer the data successfully, but of course, there's a little notice out to just about everybody. It's even on the AT&T website. You really need to make sure that you've updated your phone to the latest version and your watch to the latest version before you try to do any transfer, because there's some bug fixes that Apple did along the way. So I was waiting for this Apple Watch to blow my doors off. And it's definitely more responsive, very quick to do text, quick to get emails, quicker for things to show up on the watch per se, but it's not day and night difference. So, I thought the Apple Watch, and I'm glad I didn't upgrade in previous years, because I'm happy I did with this one, but it's not, if I had to do without it, I would still be fine with the 4.
I would think that's why I got the Ultra in a way, because I was thinking if I get the 9, it's going to be similar and I'm going to be underwhelmed. And that sounds like what you're telling me as well. So yeah, maybe you should trade it in for the Ultra too, man. Get that big boy watch.
I don't think they make a band small enough for my wrist. Some crazy glue and just stick it to
an extra hole in the band. You'll be good.
You could put a little loop on it and make it like an Apple Pocket Watch or Pocket Ultra Watch.
You need a monocle to go around with that.
Yeah, you're right. With the Ultra, you get the action button and you get like the new case design and stuff. So yeah, there's some bling aspect of that. And maybe with the action button, it's like a new feature. It would work differently. Although with the new iOS or watchOS, I'm happy with how they've improved the interface. I think it is an improvement. I'm still getting used to it. It does seem better, just like more intuitive. But I'm curious if you guys have tested the cellular. So Jerry, when you say it's faster to like hand off stuff to the watch and it'll show up on the watch and stuff like that, are you testing it by leaving your phone behind and going for a run or something? Like, have you actually tested the cellular in practice? Because I had this model with cellular like the one before this, and I'm not convinced that it ever actually worked. Like, it was enabled and supposedly working, but I don't think I ever used it successfully to receive a phone call or have notifications show up. I usually had my phone with me, but in the times I didn't, I don't think it was ever working. I think I just gave up troubleshooting that. Yeah. Have you guys actually, I don't know if Sam, you've activated yours at this point yet.
I have.
You have? Okay. So how's it working? Have you left your phone behind?
I did that with my old watch. So yeah, it worked perfect up until my watch started rebooting randomly when I went on runs. So it became unusable at that point on its own. That led me to getting a new watch as well. But yeah, in terms of the cellular capability, it always worked. After I used it for a while and it was cool for a bit, then it just lost its luster and I didn't feel the need to use it for cellular anymore. And I always had my phone on me. But to answer your question, yes, I did use it and it did work.
That's cool. And what about you, Jerry? How do you work with the cellular?
I had complete success with the Apple IV on cellular and answered calls out and about and talked to people and sent texts. So it definitely was working and it worked flawlessly. And with this one, I've only had this now for about 24 hours, so I haven't been able to really do any independent testing of it away from the phone.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like the idea of leaving my phone behind and just having the watch for all the notifications and maybe a quick call if I need to, or like tracking steps and all the things. But I like having the phone in case I want to take a photo. So that's for me, I ended up just always wanting to have the phone with me anyway.
Yeah.
I gave up on the cellular. Maybe it worked and I just never really used it much, but there were definitely a lot of times where, is this thing even working? Because I feel like I would see notifications when I'd get back home, but not until then. And then I switched to this one and I'm still happy with it. And I'm glad you guys are saying it's not earth shattering, or at least in your case, Jerry, with the...
Yeah, it's interesting. The 4 did not have always on, and now I have always on, and I don't really notice a difference. It never had a
good point.
Yeah, I never had a problem. This didn't come on right away every time I look at it. But it was never an issue.
That's a good point. I just realized I actually have turned that off because I didn't like it in cases where, I don't know, like you're in a movie or something like that and it's just always on. Like that's a case where then you have to deliberately turn it off. And if I'm just walking around or whatever, like why do I need my watch face to be on? Like you said, if you're going to look at it, you're going to turn it toward you and it's going to turn on. The always on aspect, if you didn't deliberately turn it to look at it where it would light up and be interactive or be live, the always on would just show a dimmed out, scaled back, non-updating interface. So it wasn't even that useful until you turned it, more deliberately toward you or tapped on it or whatever. So yeah, I never got the benefit of that.
I will say this, for the basic feature of it being an actual watch, I just realized I need to turn that on because that's one thing that annoyed me about my series. What did I have, Jerry? A series 3?
3.
That's one thing that annoyed me about it because I would lift it half the time and it would stay black and I had to put my wrist down and lift it again just to get the freaking time.
That part's annoying. Yeah.
Always on might be, I'm looking at my settings right now to turn it on actually.
I think you need to take me up on my offer, Sam. Let me send you my free 4 and you get rid of that Ultra.
No, I like my Ultra. I got my bling on my wrist. It's cool.
Nice. Yeah. I think maybe the watches have gotten better over the years with lighting up when you actually want to just glance at the time. Because I haven't been frustrated in that way lately. And I remember having that with prior versions. So maybe that's just gotten better. But yeah, that's actually a great point, is that the always on actually at least shows the time and a few other little status indicators that you might want to see even without activating the display.
So one of the things that I've always been a nag about on these shows is never to date our shows, at least try not to anyway, by talking about products and when product releases go. And look, almost an hour has gone by and we're just talking about our things, our Apple things. Here we are.
Yeah, I know that doesn't thrill you, but I was happy to talk about my new Apple things.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it